She betrayed, left, vanished. And then she came back, not with apologies, but with a proposal. It seemed everything was behind him, the divorce, the pain, the silence. But the moment the past stirred, the air grew heavy again. Why now? Why again? And what lies beneath her words, remorse or calculation? He built a new life, but does he have the strength not to let it all collapse again when an old love returns? With conditions? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. When Ella and I first got married, it felt like we were unstoppable. We were young, infatuated, and from the outside, people saw us as the ideal couple. But it didn't take long before the cracks beneath the surface began to show. In the beginning, she seemed supportive, encouraging me as I poured everything into building our life together. But gradually, her behavior shifted. She began withdrawing large sums from our joint account without explanation, leaving me scrambling to keep up with bills. Whenever I raised the issue, she'd turn it around, accusing me of not providing enough, as if her secretive spending was somehow my failure. It wasn't just our finances that suffered. Emotionally, she grew distant. The warmth that once defined our relationship slowly vanished. Our nights together became empty routines. She started going to bed early, claiming exhaustion, and I eventually stopped suggesting date nights altogether. It felt pointless. What hurt the most was how she rewrote the narrative. She insisted I was the one alienating her from our son, even though she rarely showed up for him. No matter what I did, she made me out to be the problem. Over time, the emotional gap widened into something unbridgeable. Ella started staying out overnight, offering vague excuses about visiting friends. When I asked for more details, she either stonewalled or changed the subject. My trust in her began to erode. The love I once held on to so tightly turned into resentment. I did my best to shield our son from the growing tension, but he saw more than I wanted him to. His confusion was a silent heartbreak I couldn't mend. I suggested counseling, anything to salvage what we had, but she dismissed the idea outright. Her detachment was chilling. It was as if she had already checked out emotionally, even though she still lived under the same roof. Eventually, the truth surfaced. She had met someone else and was leaving. A storm of emotions hit me. Fear, grief, and unexpectedly, a flicker of relief. The constant strain had become unbearable, and her departure, while painful, felt like a release. When she finally walked out, it struck me that I'd been clinging to a relationship that had long since died. After that, everything moved in fast forward. She filed for divorce, and reality became a blur. I didn't know what to expect next, but strangely, I felt lighter. Our marriage had drained me, and while the future was uncertain, I could finally exhale. The legal process, however, was chaotic. Her attorney's paperwork was riddled with basic errors, misspelled names, incorrect dates, and misinformation about our assets and child custody. The mistakes dragged out the proceedings unnecessarily. Still, the delays gave me a chance to regroup. When the time came, I addressed the issues in court, pointing out how her legal team's incompetence was stalling the case. That small move ended up saving me thousands in legal fees, a rare win in a process filled with setbacks. When the dust settled, Ella was granted the house and primary custody of our son. She moved in with the man she had left me for. Not long after, I heard unsettling news. He was abusive. For a fleeting moment, I pitied her. But that didn't change anything. She was gone, and I had to start rebuilding. I took back control of my life. I secured my finances, changed passwords, and made sure my accounts were airtight. No more surprises. The chaos of our marriage had taught me to be vigilant. I cut all safety nets she might have relied on. As brutal as it all had been, The divorce marked a turning point. Looking back, our relationship had been a cycle of emotional manipulation and financial instability. It had to end. Slowly but steadily, I started reclaiming my life. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of personal freedom. Life wasn't perfect, but it was no longer suffocating. Then, something unexpected happened. Ella began missing mortgage payments. A few months after the divorce, her uncle reached out. The house was heading toward foreclosure, and the bank was preparing to take it. He asked if I might want to buy it. I hesitated. The thought of owning the same house where so many painful memories lived felt unsettling. But as I thought more about it, I saw an opportunity. I put in an offer. To my surprise, it was accepted. In a strange twist, I became the owner of the very home we once shared. But this time, it didn't represent the past. It signified closure and a foundation for something new. From that point on, I focused on healing. I started working out, lost weight, and earned a promotion at work. Slowly, I began rediscovering who I was outside the identity of a struggling husband. I didn't rush into dating, but I welcomed the new conversations and the sense of possibility they brought. For the first time in what felt like forever, my life had forward momentum. The house, the personal growth, the clarity, they all signaled I was finally moving in the right direction. The divorce had been a painful rupture, but it made room for renewal. Then, nearly a year after everything had ended, just when life had begun to feel stable, Ella reached out. Her message came without warning. I saw her name flash on my screen one evening and froze. After all the time I had spent rebuilding, there she was again, like a ghost from a life I'd buried. "Benjamin, can we talk?" That's all it said. Short, direct, but the weight behind it felt immense. I hesitated before replying, unsure of her true intentions. "What do you want, Ella?" I wrote back, carefully stripping my message of any emotional weight. Her answer came almost immediately. She wanted to meet in person. My first reaction was a firm no. I wasn't eager to get drawn into her emotional traps again. But a small part of me, still chasing unfinished closure, compelled me to agree. It wasn't about rekindling anything. I just needed answers. One final conversation to close the door for good. When we met at the cafe the following afternoon, I barely recognized her. She looked worn, thinner, with an unfamiliar vulnerability behind eyes that had once been sharp and impenetrable. She offered me a hesitant smile, like she wasn't sure how welcome she was. "Hi, Benjamin," she said softly, her voice noticeably quieter than I remembered. I gave a restrained nod, keeping the space between us intact. "Hi, Ella. So, what's this about?" Her face shifted as she took the seat opposite me. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she began, watching me with careful intensity, as if searching for any flicker of warmth. "About us. About everything that went wrong." She paused, then added, "It ended badly, but I think we can fix it. I've changed, Benjamin." And then she dropped the real reason she'd asked to meet. "I want us to raise our child together. I think we owe it to our family to give this another try." Her words hit like a gut punch. I'd considered the possibility before, but only as a passing thought. I had already fought my way through the pain, survived the chaos, and rebuilt what was left of me. And now she was asking me to step back into the wreckage. I looked at her carefully, truly looked. And underneath the fragile facade, she was still the woman who had lied, who had broken every promise, who had left me scarred in ways I'd only just begun to recover from. Only now, she cloaked her intentions in guilt and nostalgia, presenting herself as reformed, when her motives still rang hollow. My voice was even, but resolute. "Ella, I've moved on. I'm not going back to that life. Whatever we had, it's part of the past. I've made peace with it." Her expression faltered, but she wasn't ready to let it go. "You don't understand," she insisted. "I'm not asking for much. I just want us to be a family again. I'll even repay the money I owe you if that helps. Doesn't that count for something? I stared at her, floored, as though money could undo betrayal, as if writing a check could buy her way back into my life. This isn't about money, I said, shaking my head slowly. You're trying to patch up something broken with convenience. You cheated, Ella. You lied. You destroyed the life we built together. And now you expect to walk back in like none of it happened? No, I'm done pretending. A flicker of frustration crossed her face as she inhaled deeply, trying to collect herself. I saw the sting of rejection in her eyes, but I didn't let it sway me. I had allowed myself to be manipulated for far too long. I wouldn't let her rewrite the past to suit her needs. She tried again, painting a picture of second chances, shared parenting, reconciliation, healing, but I didn't waver. No, Ella, I said firmly. This is over. And if you really care about our child, stop leaning on me to fix whatever you're battling inside. I'm not your solution. Then I stood up. There was a finality in the air, dense, irreversible. It wasn't easy, but I left that cafe, leaving her alone to deal with the aftermath of her own choices. I thought that would be the end of it, that our story had finally reached its conclusion. I had made myself crystal clear. I wasn't going back. I assumed she'd accept it and fade from my life. But with Ella, closure was never a guarantee. For a while, I braced myself for the inevitable follow-up, the guilt trip, the drama, the emotional blackmail. But it never came. No messages, no calls, just silence. It seemed she had finally accepted the truth. I wasn't going to bend. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe again. I turned my attention to moving forward. It wasn't a smooth journey. No one warns you how exhausting rebuilding after a divorce can be, but I was doing it. Piece by piece, I started reclaiming my life. That meant opening myself to new experiences, even when they scared me. And that's when Mallory entered the picture. We met through friends one evening. She was lighthearted, intelligent, and refreshingly sincere. There were no games, no pressure, just two people enjoying each other's company. At first, I was cautious. I didn't want to dive in too quickly. But with her, things felt effortless. She wasn't trying to mend me, and she didn't demand anything I couldn't give. It started simple, casual, but soon I found myself looking forward to our weekends together. We'd take spontaneous trips, explore new restaurants, and talk for hours, sometimes about everything, sometimes about nothing at all. Only after Mallory came into my life did I realize how much I'd missed real, uncomplicated connection. But of course, Ella wasn't gone for good. It happened on an otherwise peaceful Saturday afternoon. Mallory and I had just gotten back from a hike and were settling in for a quiet day. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, and my heart sank. I recognized the number instantly. Ella. Benjamin. So, you've moved on. Does she really give you everything now? Is she the one who makes you happy? The words hit like ice, flat on the surface, yet steeped in venom just beneath. I didn't reply right away. I sat with the message, feeling the old sting creep in. Her bitterness was unmistakable, coiled in every syllable, like a shadow reaching back to pull me under. It was familiar, her grasp, her manipulation, but I wasn't the man who used to flinch at it. Not anymore. I passed my phone to Mallory, who read the screen and met my eyes with steady calm. You owe her nothing, she said plainly, giving my hand a firm, grounding squeeze. You've come too far to let her pull you back into the wreckage. She was right. Her words centered me. Instead of giving in to the urge to reply and reignite old fires, I blocked Ella's number without a second thought. I wouldn't let her unravel the piece I'd spent so long stitching back together. But she didn't stop at a message. A week later, she showed up in person. It was just after sunrise on Monday. I was at the kitchen table, nursing a lukewarm coffee, when a knock echoed through the house. At first, I didn't react, but something in the rhythm of it felt too familiar. When I opened the door and saw her standing there, my stomach knotted. "What are you doing here, Ella?" I asked, voice flat but controlled. She didn't ease into the confrontation. "I saw you two," she snapped. "Do you really think you can erase me? Pretend I never mattered?" I worked to keep my expression neutral, though my jaw clenched. "It's over, Ella. I've moved on. I don't owe you any explanations, and I don't carry guilt for putting my life back together." She stepped closer, invading the space between us like it might shake the truth loose. "You're not the man I thought I knew," she spat. "You used to love me." I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "That love died a long time ago. You betrayed it. You shattered trust. You burned down everything we built. There's nothing left here, Ella." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with unspoken pain. For a moment I thought she might cry, might soften, but instead, her stare sharpened. "I hope this is worth it," she said coldly. "You'll regret walking away." She turned and left without another glance. I shut the door behind her and leaned against it, my chest aching, not from longing, but from the weight of old wounds being finally, truly closed. I'd braced myself for a confrontation like that. It didn't make it any less painful. I didn't bring it up much afterward. I refused to let her occupy more space in my life than she already had. Mallory understood anyway. She wrapped her arms around me and let me breathe in the quiet safety she offered. "You're not in this alone anymore," she whispered. And she was right. Something shifted in me that day. A chapter was truly closed. The healing wasn't instant, but with Mallory, it was real. There were no games, no emotional landmines, only openness and mutual respect. Looking back, I saw how much of myself I'd lost, trying to salvage something that had been broken beyond repair. Leaving had been the most liberating choice I'd ever made. Eventually, I asked Mallory to move in, into the same house that once held echoes of Ella, but it no longer felt haunted. It had changed. It was ours now. One evening, as we curled up on the couch, Mallory looked at me and said softly, This is where you belong." And I believed her. Together, we grew. Built something from trust, not fear. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. Ella tried to reach out again, briefly, sporadically, but I never responded. The lines were drawn. Her storm was no longer mine to weather. Then one evening, Mallory looked at me with a gentle smile and said, "You've changed." "I know," I replied. "This time, I've reclaimed my life." And with her by my side, I finally felt peace. The past had lost its grip on me. I was no longer looking back. I was ready, fully and finally, for what came next. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.